The cardiac cycle is the sequence of events that happens in one heartbeat. It includes the contraction, systole, and relaxation, diastole, of the atria and ventricles. At rest, one cycle takes about 0.8 seconds. The cardiac cycle consists of three main phases. 1. Atrial systole. This is the contraction of the atria, pushing blood into the ventricles. 2. Ventricular systole. Here, the ventricles contract, pumping blood to the lungs and the rest of the body. 3. Complete cardiac diastole. This phase marks the relaxation of both the atria and ventricles, allowing blood to flow into the heart chambers. Atrial systole. The SA node, or sinoatrial node, generates an electrical impulse that spreads across the atria. This electrical activity causes depolarization of the atria, which is shown as the P wave on the ECG. The depolarization of the atria triggers the contraction of the atria. As the atria contracts, they push blood into the relaxed ventricles through the open AV valves. This marks the beginning of the cardiac cycle, preparing the ventricles for the next phase of contraction. Ventricular systole. Ventricular systole begins when ventricular depolarization triggers the contraction of the ventricles. This is marked by the QRS complex on the ECG. As the ventricles contract, pressure rises, causing the AV valves to close. This produces the first heart sound, lub. For the first 0.05 seconds, both the AV valves and semilunar SL valves remain closed. This phase is called isovolumetric contraction because pressure builds within the ventricles, but the volume remains the same. As ventricular pressure continues to rise, it eventually exceeds the pressure in the major arteries. At this point, the SL valves open, and blood is ejected from the ventricles. Finally, the T wave on the ECG appears, marking the onset of ventricular repolarization. Ventricular repolarization is when the ventricles relax after they contract. This signals the start of ventricular relaxation and the end of ventricular systole. Relaxation period. During ventricular repolarization, the ventricles begin to relax, and the pressure inside them starts to decrease. As the pressure drops, the semilunar SL valves close, producing the second heart sound, DUP. For a brief moment, all four valves, both the AV valves and SL valves, are closed. This phase is called isovolumetric relaxation because the volume of blood in the ventricles stays the same while the pressure continues to fall. As the ventricular pressure drops further, the AV valves reopen, allowing blood from the atria to flow into the ventricles. This process begins to refill the ventricles, preparing the heart for the next cardiac cycle.